Hello, this is Dr. Karen Becker, and today we're going to discuss why to prepare a homemade diet. There are lots of really obvious good reasons why you'd want to make a homemade diet, but I would say the number one reason people consider making a homemade diet for their pets is because you know exactly what's in the food. Surprising or not surprising, the USDA, nor the FDA, nor AAFCO, the American Association of Food Control Officers, controls or dictates what private pet food companies put in their food. So what that means is you have to trust the private pet food companies to be able to tell you the truth, number one, and you have to trust that what they say is in the label is really in the label. It is pet food regulation is up to each state, so each state does enforce some codes, but it doesn't pertain to quality, absorbability, or digestibility. So the pet food industry is pretty loosely regulated, and of course people that have had problems with pet foods are pretty leery in terms of quality. There's a lot of big names out there for pet foods that many veterinarians are telling you to feed that you've had negative experiences with, and of course that causes you to doubt all pet foods. Not to say that there aren't some great quality pet foods available, but many people have lost trust in the pet food industry and they're interested in making their own food. My concern as a veterinarian is that if you want to do a homemade diet, it has to be done right. It has to be balanced. The biggest issue I see is people getting fed up or having a negative experience with a pet food company end up providing a homemade diet for their pets that's unbalanced. And actually you can do a whole lot of damage feeding an unbalanced food. So it's really important to me that the food be balanced. Unless the dog food or cat food bag that you are purchasing says that it's made with human grade ingredients, it probably isn't. That's another big reason for making your own food. You have complete control over what goes into your pet's mouth. If the dog and cat food can or bag that you're feeding says it's made with all human grade ingredients, you'll know because it's going to be about 3 times as expensive as foods that are not made from human grade ingredients. So unfortunately, crude protein, when you flip over the bag and when you see crude protein, that can constitute a whole bunch of pieces and parts that can be less than desirable for you to be feeding your pet. Number 2, the second good reason why you'd want to consider feeding a homemade diet is that it's species appropriate. Many of you that are becoming well educated when it comes to how you need to nourish your dogs and cats recognize that it's pretty imperative that you not feed your carnivores carbohydrates, including grains, corn, wheat, rice, soy, particularly. Some of the higher carb veggies can be appropriate in certain situations, like if you have a really lean dog or cat that is having problems holding or maintaining their weight, you can consider adding some vegetable sources of carbohydrates. But in terms of grains, dogs and cats don't have a grain requirement, so we recommend you not feed grains to your pets. It is difficult, especially in many parts of the country, to find good quality human food, human quality grain-free foods. It just can become very, very difficult. If you do find them, they're really expensive. So that's another reason why many people have turned to feeding homemade diets, is that actually creating your own dog and cat food is cheaper than feeding a human grade quality canned food. And if you can't feed a homemade diet, the second most appropriate food in my opinion would be a canned food, because dogs and cats were never designed to eat an entirely dehydrated food. That's what dry food is. A kibble or dry crunchy food is entirely dehydrated, and that causes a lot of organ stress, including kidney and liver degeneration. You'll note that we talk a lot about biologically appropriate, excellent quality, species appropriate, which means it needs to be in the biologically correct form, the food you feed your dogs and cats, meaning moisture rich. We want a high protein, high moisture, low carbohydrate diet, and that can be very difficult to find. The other great thing about feeding a homemade diet is that you can avoid certain chemicals, preservatives, emulsifiers, FD&C colors that you don't want to be feeding your pet anyway. Many pet foods, even great quality pet foods, add in flavor enhancers and emulsifiers and extra fats that are quite palatable, but oftentimes your pets don't need. So the advantages of home preparing your pet's meals are that you have complete control over the ingredients that go into your pet's foods. You're able to pick the veggies that you're interested in feeding, so you can pick higher antioxidant veggies or certain vegetables that have certain medicinal qualities for your particular pets. You have complete control over the quality of meat sources that go into your pet foods. That can be pretty important because let's say you have a cat that has a known chicken allergy. You can avoid feeding chicken because you are in complete control of picking other protein sources that would naturally be appropriate for your cats. It is also more economical. If you're able to buy in larger quantities when meats and veggies go on sale, and you're able to package foods, let's say for several weeks or several months even, and freeze it, it can be quite convenient if you pair up with a buddy and make food for all of your pets. You're able to make food for several weeks or months, which actually can end up being quite convenient over the course of several weeks or months if you prepare it adequately. The other great thing about preparing a homemade diet is that if you follow a recipe, which is what we're going to recommend you do, you're going to know in your heart that you're meeting your pet's vibrant living food requirement, but also feeding them a species appropriate diet in terms of it being nutrient balanced, omega fatty acid rich, and vitamin mineral supplementation in correct proportion.